So one of the questions that we get quite frequently, not just in response to Mitch's request for questions currently, but in general is, how is Kitchener-Waterloo going to deal with the perceived oversupply in condos? And it's a fascinating question for a variety of reasons, largely because we don't agree that it's true. And Mitch, do you have some thoughts on basically why that's the case?
The region has stated that we're expecting to see between 100 to 150,000 new people into Kitchener-Waterloo over the next 15 years. If we think that we are only bringing new product into the market at a rate of about 1,000, 1,500 to 2,000 units a year, that is not even close to enough to meet the demand that we're seeing now and we're going to see for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So to think that when we see a new project, when we see a new development, whether it's condo, freehold, town, whatnot, the inventory is greatly needed. And to just think that we're in an oversupply market is just, to me, is completely false.
In the coming years, and we've seen it in the past few years, these condos are the way of the future. We are seeing more and more, whether they're empty nesters or the millennials, this is the way people want to live. Not that the suburbs are ever going to not be desirable, but as more buildings come up, there are going to be more amenities in the downtown core. People are going to love the freedom of not having to drive. People are going to love the ability to walk downstairs and have 10 or 15 restaurants at your fingertips. So there's going to be a shift towards this being everybody's ideal way to live.
The question of oversaturation also comes up sometimes from people that are considering a purchase, asking us if there's too much investment or too much speculation in the market. And what I find interesting about that is if you waited until you had a large group of people that needed a home and tried to build, you'd have people without homes. And what investment allows and what these condos being purchased and sold for delivery years down the road is investors can come in, they can help buildings get built, and that future Google engineer or city hall worker or doctor down the street may not be ready to purchase when a condo goes on pre-sale, but they're there to purchase it or to move into it as a rental when the building completes 4 or 5 years later. So it's important to have investment participation. That's how buildings get built. It helps the city stay ahead of the curve and have the necessary vacancies available for people when they're needed. And it's definitely not a case of over-speculation or oversaturation. It's a very symbiotic relationship between city growth, investors, and the people that we see eventually move into buildings 3 or 4 years after they're eventually created and constructed. We often get the question, when is the best time as an investor or an end user to buy a condo? And here at Condo Culture, we typically focus on 2 different times. Of course, day one is an excellent time to do it. You're getting in at developers' entry-level pricing, the best opportunity to gain incentives, and also the best selection. A second time that we see a lot of success in making that type of purchase is toward the tail end when a building is nearly complete.
Well, Tim pointed out a lot of the advantages of buying pre-construction. If you're an end user or an investor, you may also have a better chance of utilizing your money and earning money immediately if you buy resale, something that's already built, because as soon as you get that mortgage, you have rent coming in right away. You also don't have to have your deposit tied up. Now, of course, with pre-construction, you often have some substantial gains in that time period. It could be 1 to 3 years that you're waiting for the building to get built, which is, of course, an advantage of pre-construction.
Mitch, can you think of any current examples that would give an investor, somebody looking to purchase, a great opportunity to buy now in the scenario that Madeline's talked about? Get access to a great pre-construction project, maybe a price discount relative to typical market value without having tied up your money for that several year period.
Given the change in the market dynamics that we've seen over the last 2 years, the assignment sale or assignment opportunity where somebody has bought a pre-construction contract already, but either they do not want to close, they can't close maybe, or something just has happened in terms of a complete change of life where that unit is no longer relevant for their life situation. So assignment sales are actually now almost like a final opportunity to get into a building that is either under construction, almost done construction, and is at a point where closings could be within the next, call it 1 to 6 months. But a lot of the risks and potential headaches and waiting timelines are almost eliminated at that point.
The Caroline Street private residences are a great way to illustrate this. Originally, people that bought day one were able to purchase at prices that were at or below $400 a square foot. You can go in today on assignment and purchase a beautifully finished unit for $510 a square foot, maybe $520. And the reason that that's still appealing is that if you were to wait for the next best pre-construction opportunity, the pricing on that could be $550, $560, or a little bit more. So while buying today on assignment isn't quite as good as buying day one 4 years ago, it still represents a really great opportunity relative to the next thing. So an investor may choose to step in now. You're getting a 10% discount to the next possible building, and you're gaining that rental income that we've been talking about right away. You guys work with a large number of buyers locally, tenants. You have options. What would you say are things that when you're with a client, and if you were going to be listing a condo either for sale or for rent, what are your buyers and tenants seeing that can make them pick one versus another?
So making your unit stand out is very important. Nowadays, so many people are already pre-screening everything online. So number one, photos, but have some professional photography. And professional photography includes making sure that the angles are right. We want the rooms to look big. Condos are not. You're not doing all your living inside your unit in a condominium, but you really want your unit to feel like whoever's buying it is going to have enough space, or whoever's renting it out is going to be living in it. If your furniture is the wrong size for the unit, perhaps take a few pieces out, and always make sure that your curtains are open, your personal effects are put away, hidden in drawers. That's things like toothbrushes, and this is for showings or photos. People don't want to think about someone else living in that space, and we've all heard it over and over again, but a great example is if I'm walking through a unit and I take a look at a picture on the wall, all of a sudden my brain is focusing on this photo of a beautiful vacation in Maui and not on the room. When I walk away, I might no longer remember how big that living room was, but it might stay in my head how nice they looked on that beach.
And to me, a word that I would focus on would be balance. You don't want to walk into a space and have nothing in it, because what can happen with buyers, eyes are drawn to things you don't want them to see. Maybe the den's too small, maybe the baseboards need to be painted. So having a unit staged, or at least looking welcoming and somewhat comfortable, will help people have a good feeling when they're in the space. Conversely, if you're out of balance in terms of having too many personal effects in the unit, too much clutter, people can't take in and appreciate the attributes of the unit itself. They're distracted, to your point, by, it could be like a teaspoon collection or whatever, right? But it needs to be the unit that people are seeing, and it needs to be the right aspects of the unit, not the wrong ones. So finding that balance between not having too little in there that the eyes wander where you don't need them, and not having too much where they can't take in the condo at all is what I would say can also contribute to success.
Thanks for tuning in to our market update. Stay tuned for next month's update as we review the statistics, and hopefully we see a change in weather patterns to welcome in the spring 2019 market. A little bit.